My name is Waffles, and I'm a government whistleblower turned political commentator, and this is the international news highlights for the past 24 hours. Today is November 23rd, 2025. It is 11:34 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. For our international news highlights, Beirut, Hezbollah Israeli strike kills a senior militant. Israel is claiming that they killed another member of Hezbollah. 28 people were wounded. The United States looks like it might have been involved in this. I don't want nothing to do with the shit that's going on out there, to be honest. Like, I don't know if the person they're claiming is Hezbollah or not. So I don't want to be involved in it. But there are claims of that going on in the news, claiming that some person from Hezbollah was killed that was like supposedly a high value target, but it also says 28 civilians were killed. If they got drones and all of this technology, there is no good enough excuse when people are living in tents and don't even have the privacy of walls around them. I want nothing to do with it. Taiwan, Japan, China diplomatic storm over Taiwan signals in a sharp international confrontation. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi publicly condemned Japan's Prime Minister Sanae Takaishi, that's the one that's been making deals with Donald Trump and doing this Japan first thing, for comments suggesting Japan might intervene militarily if China attacked Taiwan. China denounced it as a wrong signal and warned of revisiting Japan's wartime history and regional role. The rhetoric signals a dangerous escalation in Sino-Japanese relations, touching on territorial sovereignty, military alliance dynamics, U.S. and Japan, and East Asia stability. For U.S. foreign policy and trade, this may impact semiconductor and auto supply chains, defense commitments, and U.S. strategic posture in the region. There's a cat under my desk, by the way. Accountability angle, it raises questions about how much Japan coordinates with allies, including the U.S., on Taiwan posture, how China interprets red lines, and how trade disruption risks are being managed. Geneva talks, U.S. diplomacy in Ukraine, peace plan pressures, high-level diplomacy, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Ukrainian officials met in Geneva on a U.S.-backed draft peace plan for Ukraine. The talks marked progress but exposed deep resistance from Kiev and European allies over terms that would limit Ukraine's military size and require territorial concessions. Pretty much from what I have heard about this, I've not read it immediately, but supposedly it is like a wish list from Russia that Trump is trying to pass on as a peace deal. It requires that Ukraine give up a bunch of land and also limit the size of its military. That makes no freaking sense for a peace deal. Why it matters, the plan's potential to reshape the war in Ukraine raises major governance, legal, and security questions, sovereignty, allied commitments, and whether the U.S. is driving a deal that Ukraine sees as capitulation. From an accountability lens, the U.S. role, transparency of terms, and how Ukrainian sovereignty is protected or compromised must be closely scrutinized. Economic and trade implications, reconstruction funding, frozen Russian assets, investor risk, and global supply chains may all be impacted depending on the deal's structure. Cameroon opposition leader flees to the Gambia after disputed vote. In Cameroon, opposition figure Issa Chiroma, Tchiroma, Issa Chiroma Bakary.
Issa Chiroma Bakary.
All right. In Cameroon, opposition figure Issa Chiroma Bakary fled to the Gambia, claiming illegally targeted persecution following a disputed parliamentary municipal vote where the long-standing government under Paul Biya claimed victory. This development underscores democratic backsliding in Central Africa, challenges to electoral legitimacy, and refugee rights implications. For U.S.-EU policy, what level of diplomatic pressure or sanctions are being considered? What to watch, whether Cameroon uses security forces to suppress dissent further, how regional bodies, e.g. CEMAC, respond, that's an acronym, and if external aid cooperation is conditioned on reforms. Guinea-Bissau presidential election incumbent faces tight race and exclusion of opposition. In West Africa, President Umaro Sissoko Embalo is running for a second term against 11 challengers amid claims of opposition party exclusion and campaign irregularities. When it matters, the contest raises multiple governance and stability risks, weakened opposition, contested mandates, and potential for post-electoral unrest. For international firms and investors, political instability can hamper contracts, mining operations, and aid programs. What to watch, whether the election proceeds fairly, how local security forces act after results, and whether international observers raise credibility concerns. South Africa G20 Summit, U.S. absence, and multilateral strains. At the G20 Summit, hosted by South Africa November 22nd to 23rd, 2025, the absence of the U.S. flagged a challenging multilateral dynamic. The host country emphasized debt relief, climate adaptation, finance, and greater voice for global South states. Why it matters, this shift signals a potential decline in U.S. leadership in global governance forums, opening space for alternative blocs like BRICS or divergent agendas. Trade and climate implications are significant. Global consensus may weaken. Watch point, whether African and emerging economy states pivot toward China, Russia, which I think is the whole goal here. If we have a world war going on that is being orchestrated by Putin and China and BRICS to, destroy the United States economically, then we should expect that money is going to be funneled into China and Russia. What to watch, whether African and emerging economy states pivot toward China and Russia, how U.S. responds to diminished foreign influence, and what commitments in debt and climate aid emerge from the summit. This is what I am trying to warn people about. Africa is a huge area that needs further economic developing, and for that reason, it is a target. And it looks like Trump has agreed not to participate in the economic development of Africa and hand over trade in the region, not be involved in it, and essentially, by the choice of not being involved with it, essentially hand over any potential economic gains or participation that the United States could have in China, or not in China, in Africa, which is a whole fucking continent. During this time, which is crucial for Africa's development, the United States has chosen to hand over the economic goods of trade and participation with Africa to China and Russia to profit off of Africa's economic development. Rather than making smart moves, this will financially benefit China and Russia, and I do think it's on purpose. Nigeria continued abductions and U.S. threat of sanctions. The UN Human Rights Office issued a call following the abduction of hundreds of school children in Nigeria, and the U.S. signaled threats of sanctions or military support to help protect religious minorities and schools in the region. Why it matters, the mass kidnappings reflect a state security failure and raise human rights alarm. U.S. threats of punitive or military action raise sovereignty, liability, and precedent questions. Things to keep an eye on: whether the U.S. follows through on sanctions or military support, how Nigerian officials respond, and how this affects Christian and Muslim dynamics in Nigeria, plus broader regional stability. Japan-China diplomacy escalates over Taiwan comments. Japan's prime minister made comments suggesting Japan might intervene if China attacked Taiwan. China responded with strong condemnation, citing wrong signal and raising historical and regional security grievances. Why it matters: this is not only a military posture shift, but also risk to supply chains and trade flows, particularly semiconductors and automobiles through East Asia. U.S. ties to Japan and Taiwan mean direct implications for U.S. trade and security commitments. What to watch: whether Japan revises its defense doctrine, how China calibrates its response, military drills, trade sanctions, and what this means for U.S. export control regimes in the region. Beirut and Lebanon, Israeli strike kills supposed Hezbollah commander. I am not going to report on that. These claims are being made. I want nothing to do with it. People died. The end. Iran Gulf oil tanker seizure off U.A.E. coast by Iran. Reports show that Strait of Hormuz saw a seizure by Iran of a Singapore-bound oil tanker flagged to the Marshall Islands. Implication: major disruption risk for global oil flows, trade, shipping, insurance, and energy security issues emerge. U.S. trade policy and sanction oversight will come under scrutiny. How is Washington responding to Iranian maritime actions? Canada and Germany talks on Ukraine and Gaza during G20 sidelines. On the sidelines of the G20 Johannesburg summit, Canada's Prime Minister and Germany's Chancellor held talks dealing with Ukraine and Gaza, underlining multilateral tension and shifting strategic alignments. Implication: the U.S. role in global diplomacy may be challenged. Alliances are adapting. The shifting backdrop may influence trade, sanctions, aid flows, and strategic commitments, all of which warrant scrutiny in terms of U.S. accountability and global governance. Latin America: Brazil police arrest ex-president Jair Bolsonaro ahead of prison sentence. Donald Trump's buddy that decided to destroy the living fuck out of the rainforest for profit and then flee to Florida has been arrested. Never thought I'd see this day. Brazilian authorities detained Bolsonaro amid arrangements to serve a long prison sentence related to a coup attempt. This is Donald Trump's buddy. And he slashed and burned the living fuck out of the rainforest for his own benefit. The whole planet needs the oxygen coming from the rainforest. He's been arrested, and he will be serving a long prison sentence related to coup attempt charges. He fled to Florida after slash and burning, after doing what he did in Brazil. Implications: significant precedents for accountability of high-level officials in Latin America for U.S. policy, monitoring how Washington engages, whether there is support or pressure for fair trial and transparent processes, and how this affects trade and regional geopolitical alignments. Wow, I think I need like a little cake or something to celebrate this. East African rift: sudden cross-border troop movements in Ethiopia-Somalia corridor. Multiple civil society monitors report unannounced troop redeployments along the Ethiopia-Somalia frontier following Ethiopia's unresolved port access dispute. Lots of questions to be asked on that one. Thailand: quiet arrests of student leaders before constitutional court hearing. Student movement organizers have reportedly been detained in soft arrests ahead of ruling on Lese Majesty. I don't know if I'm saying that right. charges. No idea what that means. Argentina IMF tensions, delayed fiscal figures prompt rumors of emergency talks. Buenos Aires failed to publish its scheduled fiscal report, raising immediate speculation that the IMF may push for emergency renegotiation of its stabilization arrangement. Yeah, well, the United States is also failing to publish its fiscal report. So what is going on in Buenos Aires? Why are similar things happening here in the United States that are indicative of a coup? What is this place? This is the capital of Argentina. We just gave a shit ton of money, so these people are directly involved with the coup that is happening here in the United States because they just got a shit ton of money from the United States, and they have failed to publish their fiscal report. Buenos Aires failed to publish its scheduled fiscal report. Yeah, it would be nice to know what the cause of that is. Did political infighting delay the release, or does the data contain politically explicit deficits? I think it's kind of strange that the President of the United States will literally starve American civilians and send billions of dollars over to Argentina. So considering that they also have a similar trend of not reporting their economic numbers, I find that concerning. Pakistan new military information wing quietly launched. Why it matters. Pakistan's army has created a new communications and intelligence wing reportedly focused on social media narrative shaping. These are just short blurbs. I wish I had more detailed information. These are some interesting things people could dig into. Why is Pakistan trying to do some weird shit with social media? What's going on with that? I'd like to know more. EU border agency Frontex whistleblower docs suggest systemic evidence deletion. A European non-governmental organization, NGO, claims new internal documents show Frontex, Frontex, officers deleted or altered surveillance logs tied to alleged pushback operations in the Mediterranean. Cat knocked over the water bowl. China! Okay, what were we doing? A European NGO claims new internal documents show Frontex officers deleted or altered surveillance logs tied to alleged pushback operations in the Mediterranean. Are EU officials obstructing paramilitary oversight? Are the altered logs tied to incidents involving asylum seeker drownings? Has the U.S. State Department communicated concerns given transatlantic cooperation and migration enforcement? Frontex. I don't even know what that is. Frontex is a European Union border and coast guard agency established in 2004 to support EU member states in managing the EU's external borders and fighting cross-border crime. Philippines' sudden halt to mining licenses linked to Chinese influence probes. Manila paused approvals for new nickel and copper mining concessions as agencies investigate whether Chinese-linked firms used shell companies to bypass ownership limits. There's concerns that this could disrupt EV supply chains, and it could affect U.S.-Philippines defense cooperation as tensions with China grow. West Africa, mysterious power grid failures showing signs of coordinated cyber interference. Multiple West African nations, including Ghana, Togo, and Cote, C-O-T, it looks weird. It's got symbols.
Côte d'Ivoire.
Côte d'Ivoire. Mysterious power grid failures showing signs of coordinated cyber interference. Multiple West African nations, including Ghana, Togo, and Cote d'Ivoire, experienced synchronized grid disturbances within a 48-hour window. Investigative angles, things to consider, things to look at if you want to look further into this. Are these load balancing failures or targeted cyber intrusions? Any signatures resembling known Russian or Iranian cyber toolkits? Are Western utilities or contractors in the region reporting breaches that haven't been disclosed publicly? This concludes our international news report for today. I'm going to go now. Bye.
So the Olympics is great. And Johnny, for the others, you know, the World Cup, Johnny is the head of it. We had our top people, Wasserman. They all came in on the Olympics, and then I saw Johnny. And we got the World Cup, too. And, you know, it's only because they rigged the election that I'll be your president representing you there. You know, I got both of them. I got the Olympics, and I got the World Cup. And I said, you know, it's too bad. One was in 2026, and the other was in 2028. And I said, I won't be there. I won't be your president. But then they rigged the election, and now we won, so I'm going to be your president for the Olympics and for the World Cup. So, Johnny, thank you for the World Cup. And everybody, thank you for the Olympics. We're going to have a great time.
Hey guys, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment on my videos. And also, don't forget to check out my shop where you could get this awesome Real Patriots Punch Nazis t-shirt. America, fuck yeah! And if you go to the link tree in my bio on most platforms, it's got links to everything, all of my stuff. You can find my shop there. I'm on eBay. You can also get this cool Exterminate MAGA sticker, cause MAGA's fucking cockroaches. And fuck MAGA, abolish MAGA, fuck you MAGA.